Hey there, my name's Mackenzie. I'm the founder of Grad Jobs. I help students and graduates all over the world to land their dream jobs. And I know this process is very hard for a lot of people, and a lot of students and grads struggle. And I don't want you to be one of these people. So that's why I'm shooting this video. And what I want to share with you in this video today is something that is almost a superpower when it comes to getting the results that you're looking for in your life or your job search or even your university grades. You can pretty much apply this to every area of life, and it really is a bit of a superpower. So what it is called is the Pareto Principle, or the 80-20 rule. And it's a very well-known principle or mental model that is used in especially in business and a lot of tech startups and things like that, but also across many different areas of life. And it actually comes from the economist Vilfredo Pareto. And from what I understand, he realized that in all these different areas of life, there was this trend, this pattern that was coming up everywhere. It was ubiquitous in a sense. And for example, he identified that about 20% of the population of a country tended to have about 80% of the wealth, and about 20% of these seeds that were planted in the garden led to about 80% of the tomato crops that eventually grew. So this is where the rule comes from, and what is amazing is that this also applies to so many other areas of life, this same rule. And basically what it is, when you boil it down, it is that about 20% on average, this is just a rough number, but it's just a good way to look at it, about 20% of your input variables will cause about 80% of your output variables, or your results, in many cases. And this won't always be 80-20. It might be 90-10. It might be 95-5. It might be 60-40. But the main point of this rule is to show that there is an asymmetry there. It's not like a one-to-one relationship. And so let me just draw this diagrammatically so that you can understand what we're talking about here. Whoops. So imagine in this bar chart here, imagine these are, let's just say, the number of people in a population. So say this is 80% of people in the population, and this is 20% in a certain country. This is people, let's say. And then say this is the wealth of a country, so the wealth in, say, dollars. And what they found is that about, on average, and again, this isn't always consistent, but about 80% of the wealth was held by 20% of the people. And about 20% of the wealth was held by about 80% of the people. Here, like this. And this is also applied in many other areas as well. For example, when you often analyze, say, companies or businesses, and this isn't always true again, but often these patterns do exist, you might identify that 20% of customers lead to 80% of your customer support. Customer support. You might find that 20% of the hours that you invest in studying lead to 80% of your grades. And you might find that 20% of the jobs you apply to lead to 80% of your interviews. For example, there are all these different variables at play. And so now that we understand kind of how this plays out in our environment, how can we use this? When it comes to the job search, typically what we find is about 20% of the activities that you can take in a given day lead to about 80% of your results. And it's so funny how often I see this when I talk to students and graduates. Someone will come onto the phone and I'll ask them, how many applications have you submitted? And how many interviews have you got? And then I'll ask them, okay, and how many interviews have you got through people you know, or relationships, or referrals? And often it will look like this. So people will spend about, say, just an estimate, but they'll spend 20% of their time building, say, relationships. Or even less. Often it's like 5. Often this is maybe even 5%. And then 90% or 95% of the time, they'll spend it on applications. But the funniest thing is, more often than not, this happens all the time, when you look at interviews, say this is the split for the time they invest, but then if they actually look at the interviews, the ones that come from people they know might actually be like 70%, or say 60% from these relationships. And only 40% are from the applications. And often, it's actually less. Often, some people I see, they apply to 20, 50 jobs, and they've got no interviews. In some cases. And then they'll have 3 interviews they've got by not even applying through these relationships. And another example of this is with the types of jobs. You know, when I look at people, and I ask them questions, students and graduates who typically aren't getting the results they want, I ask them, what kind of jobs they're applying to. And what they'll say maybe is they'll say, oh, they're going for, 80%, they're spending 80% of their time on, job X and 20% of their time trying to get job Y. But then when they look at their interviews, 80% of their interviews are coming from just one type of job, and only 20% of the interviews are coming from this other job. So what we could hypothesize here is that if they just doubled down and spent all of their time on this job, they would get way more interviews, far more interviews. For example, there are so many different patterns that you see when you talk to enough people in this job search area. And so now coming back to, I just want to make this a quicker video. I could go into this for ages, but if you're a job seeker, how can you use this? Well, what I urge you to think is, firstly, how are you investing your time? This is the first thing, number 1. How invest time? Because you only have a certain amount, a certain number of hours in the day, right? And some people, they work part-time and they're studying, so they might have 2 hours, 1 hour to invest in job searching. Some people, they're job searching full-time, they've got 24 hours. Some people might have 2, some people might even have 1 hour. Some people might have, 10 hours. So the way you spend your time here is really important, because if you spend this into activities that are getting you not much of a result, and you could be spending it on activities that are getting you a big result, then you're misallocating your time and you're not achieving the goal you want. So what I highly recommend is asking your question this. So asking yourself this question: what is the 20%? What are the 20% of activities that are getting me 80% of my results? And also ask yourself, what are the activities that you're spending 80% of your time on and getting 20% of your results or less? And then what you can do is you can basically eliminate the activities that are not good, that are not giving you a good return on your investment, and you can double down 2x, 3x the activities that are getting you results. And so in my experience, for example, things that have a massive asymmetric return based on the time you invest are things like connecting with people on LinkedIn, chatting with people and building relationships, having phone calls or video calls or even coffee chats, sending cold emails, these kind of things, and talking to low-hanging fruit. For example, people in your network who might be able to help, professors, acquaintances, family members, friends of friends. For me, these are very low-hanging pieces of fruit, things that you can just quickly get a result from. But often things like spending ages tailoring an application for a job that you're unlikely to get, this is where a lot of people mess up, because they're spending all of their time on a low-yield thing. So that's the first thing I would ask you. The second thing is I would ask you, almost as a subset of this, is how are you strategizing? What is your strategy in terms of, which jobs slash internships slash companies slash industries are getting you, or which 20% of these are getting you 80% of your results. So you could look at this first one as basically, what activities, what are the 80-20 activities you can do, 20% of activities that get you 80% of results, and what are the 20% of the target opportunities that are getting you results, 80% of the results. So for example, do you notice you get an interview for every accountant job you apply for, but you don't get an interview every time you go for a data analyst job? For example, it's just a silly example. Very powerful things to ask. And also, you can apply this to so many other areas of life. I mean, for me, when I was a student, I applied this here as well. I looked exactly at, what was the test going to be on at the end of the semester, and thought, what are the things I can focus on that will get, what's the 20% I can focus on that get me 80% of the results? Then I had to spend barely any time studying and could get the same results that I wanted to get. So you can apply this in many, many other areas, and this is a really important tool, at least for me, and a lot of my clients. So anyway, that's the 80-20 rule. I could go on about it forever. There's lots of good books on it, which definitely go check out. People really dive into this and how it all works. But the main takeaway for me to you is, if you're a student or graduate and you're not getting the results that you want, see if you can use this 80-20 rule to optimize things, to optimize your results, to get better results, to get better results with less effort, etc. And if you use this technique and you get results from it, and you want to share it with me, please reach out. I'd love to hear about how it goes. And let me know if there's any other content or any other things that you'd like to learn, or if you liked learning about this, or if you even knew about this before and it was not useful, let me know, and I can use that to inform future content. So I hope that was useful. Thank you for listening today. I will see you soon. Have a good one. Bye.